Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It is a pleasure to welcome everyone to the Tidewater Community College Spring 2022 Convocation. I hope that you all had an enjoyable break and are ready to press forward as we prepare to welcome our students back for the spring. Thank you all for attending via live stream and for your flexibility with our return as we continually navigate the dynamics of the pandemic. Our utmost concern is for the safety of all faculty, staff, students, and our communities. As noted in your program, we will start today's program with President Constance's Spring Convocation Address, followed by our keynote address from Heather McKay and Todd Oldham. Following a 5-minute break, we'll move on to the State of the College reports from TCC Vice Presidents. After lunch, virtual professional development sessions will begin at 1 o'clock. Please refer to your program for access to the Zoom link for all sessions. The same Zoom link will be used for each session. Again, thank you for joining us for Convocation. And now, please welcome our 6th president of Tidewater Community College, Dr. Marcia Constant.
Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year to each and every one of you. And thank you also, Dr. Sledge, for introducing me this morning. I hope that you all had an enjoyable, safe, and restful holiday. Although we have had to start the year in remote form, as I shared in last week's message, your health and well-being is priority. We will continue to monitor data and our college environment as we make decisions regarding the virus going forward. I thank each of you, faculty and staff, for your perseverance during these difficult times with a positive attitude and persistence as we work together to move TCC forward. And to the maintenance and housekeeping staffs, thank you so much for keeping our facilities clean during these difficult times. I also extend a special thank you to the marketing staff for all of the TV ads aired during the holiday break. Several persons throughout the community shared very positive comments about the TV ads. We want to continue to promote the good news about TCC, our students and programs. Prior to the break, a year-end review was distributed college-wide. This was a brief account of the great work being done here at the college, and it is each of you that's making things happen here for TCC, and you are recognized and appreciated. This year, we will continue the momentum. We will remain focused on enrollment management, that is recruiting new students and retaining our current students. We will remain focused on academic engagement with our students, both inside and outside the classroom, and on DEI. As I mentioned during the fall, we will operate in accordance with the strategic plan, Innovate 2026. Also, we will work to ensure that compliance with our core values is evident, and they are teaching and learning excellence, diversity, equity, and inclusion, community, innovation, empathy, integrity, and accountability. And we will remain committed to and focused on our vision, and that is to be the community's first choice for education, opportunity, partnership, and innovation. In September, the college's 5th year report is due to the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools Commission on Colleges. A sincere thanks is extended to the committee working on this important initiative. At this time, I would like to acknowledge a few of our faculty members for accomplishments this past year. First of all, Dr. Tiffany Sledge, Chair of the Faculty Senate. Ms. Jennifer Ferguson was selected as Pathway Dean for Health Professions. Dr. Siobhan Harris was selected as Discipline Dean for Natural Sciences. Dr. Thomas Gary was selected as a recipient of the 2022 Shelf Outstanding Faculty Award. Abe Sells, collision repair faculty, participated in a collision repair podcast in November promoting the collision repair training program and the industry. Catherine Burher was awarded a VIVA Open Adoption Grant by the Virginia Academic Library Consortium. Dr. Lynette Hauser received an invitation to participate in a faculty development network aimed at developing and disseminating inclusive classroom activities that use 3D physical models in undergraduate STEM courses. Kimberly Jones was selected as TCC's Outstanding Professor of the Year for 2021, and Patia Downey was selected as TCC's Outstanding Adjunct of the Year for 2021. I join your colleagues in congratulating you on these well-deserved recognitions. Many of the student affairs staff may not be in our sessions this morning or throughout the day today, as they are busy assisting students during this registration period. I extend a word of thanks to each of the counselors, advisors, registration staff, and others during this time. I look forward again this year to visiting each of the campuses to engage in open dialogue sessions, and you are all encouraged and invited to participate with me during these sessions at the various campuses. We will continue our efforts to communicate college-wide with our biweekly newsletter by way of using the website and our TCC All announcements as appropriate. So please send us information that's going on in your areas so that we can share with the college community in our biweekly newsletter. We will continue opportunities to expand professional development for all faculty and staff to promote academic excellence and innovation. We will continue also to use qualitative and quantitative data to influence decisions, and you will see evidence of this during a presentation later throughout the day. This past year, with COVID-19 funds, we supported students by providing computers and other technology, as well as financial assistance to help defray the cost of books and tuition. And as these funds are depleted and eliminated, we will strengthen external fundraising to support scholarships for all students, both curriculum and workforce. This will be a priority in 2022. I am very excited this morning to announce that the Center for Teaching and Excellence will be reinstituted in the fall of this year. And I look forward to your scholarly engagement with this exciting initiative. And finally, as you have heard me say previously, I have an outstanding team of vice presidents who make up the president's cabinet. And later this morning, each of them will provide updates from their respective areas. Again, I welcome everyone back for the start of a new year. Please stay tuned during the next several days for more information regarding our response to the pandemic. Thank you all and have a wonderful convocation.
Thank you so much, as always, Dr. Constant, for your wonderful leadership, and happy second anniversary as of tomorrow. You've been with us since January the 6th of 2020, so happy anniversary. Colleagues, we have the privilege of having with us today Ms. Heather McKay and Dr. Todd Oldham. Heather McKay is the Executive Director of the Virginia Office of Education Economics, or the VOEE. The VOEE is a newly formed office in the Commonwealth housed at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, charged with examining linkages between education and the labor market. Prior to coming to VOEE, Heather was the founding director of the Education and Employment Research Center at the School of Management and Labor Relations at Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey. At Rutgers, Heather conducted research and evaluations on community college programs, state and federal workforce development systems, and education and workforce policies. Ms. McKay completed her bachelor's degree at Bryn Mawr College. She has a master's degree in history, as well as a master's degree in global affairs from Rutgers University. Todd Oldham serves as the research director for the Virginia Office of Education Economics, VOEE. His career spans 20 years at both the university and community college, and he has worked at institutions within California, Washington State, and New York. His areas of expertise include academic and career technical education, workforce development, apprenticeship, public and private partnerships, grants development, and regional economic development through labor market analysis. Dr. Oldham holds a Doctor of Education from Northeastern University, an MBA from Chapman University, and a bachelor's degree summa cum laude from the University of California, Los Angeles. He is also a community college graduate, having earned an associate's degree from Orange Coast College, located in Costa Mesa, California. Colleagues, please join me in welcoming Ms. Heather McKay and Dr. Todd Oldham.
Dr. Sledge, thank you so much. I'm just going to share some slides here, so just give me 1 second. There we go. I hope everyone can see those. Thank you so much, Dr. Sledge and Dr. Constant, for inviting us today. We're so excited to be with you. Wish we were there in person, but happy to be remote and speak to the community. Todd and I are both new to Virginia, having come just a couple of months ago to the state. And so we're learning and meeting folks, and I hope that we can all meet you in person and be together at some point in the future. But for now, this is wonderful and a great way for us to tell you what VOE is going to be doing as we move forward in the state, and to think about ways that we can work with Tidewater Community College, which I think is really our goal here today in sharing with you. So just to give you a little picture of what we're going to talk about today, I'm going to speak a little bit about challenges for education in the labor market, and particularly community college, drawing on some of the literature. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the idea for VOE and how it got created and what we've done so far. And then Todd's going to really talk in detail about some of the work that we expect to do, and really think through some of those relationships that we could make with Tidewater Community College, providing data that could hopefully help you all as you move forward making these questions. Dr. Constant made a great point about using data for decision making, and that's really what VOE is here to help you all do. So we'll go through this today, and please, as you move through this presentation, if you have questions, you can post them on the YouTube, and they'll come to us, and Todd and I can answer them at the end. We have some time at the end to answer questions, so please put any questions you have into that YouTube chat, and we will be answering them at the end. So we all know, of course, that the role of community colleges is really complicated. And I've been studying community colleges for many years. I've traveled around the country to hundreds of community colleges in about 26 states. And I know that it's complicated in terms of what community colleges are supposed to do, right? There's a transfer mission, there's a mission to prepare folks for jobs and work, and there's a mission to really respond quickly to the local community and the state and the needs that are happening there. So there's this idea that community colleges are going to be able to rapidly train folks for growing fields and occupations. They're going to be able to participate fully in things like pandemic recovery, which we're all working on now today. They're going to respond to policy initiatives like the infrastructure bill. But these are really complicated tasks, and it's hard to make the choices and decisions about how to do this work well, what things to concentrate on, what programs to focus on, what are the learning outcomes and competencies we need to impart in students so that they are successful in the labor market. How does an institution do all of these things well? It's a truly, truly complicated task. Many folks, Kevin Doherty, a friend at Columbia, and often writes about this as being one of the biggest challenges that the community college has, that there are just so many missions and so many things that this institution is expected to do. The other piece of the puzzle here is that, of course, post-secondary education has become just increasingly important for students and workers. We know that college graduates after this pandemic and after the Great Recession are employed more often. They earn significantly more without college degrees on average than other folks. The degree is also the most reliable defense against unemployment. We saw this as the pandemic raged through the country. Those with degrees stayed in their jobs more frequently, were able to have more self-sufficiency for their family. And also there's a value to non-degree credentials, post-secondary credentials that don't reach that degree point, maybe in CTE or other areas, but we need to learn more about their quality, what's actually useful, how employers are understanding those credentials. All of these things are areas of great importance for folks. We also know, of course, that higher education is incredibly expensive, right? For students, for workers, for states, for institutions to offer. And so making choices is really important. How we think about what we offer, the competencies that are being taught, the programs available. These decisions become more and more crucial as we move forward in thinking about what to do with existing budget challenges and budget challenges that will emerge in the future. So questions like what will help economies grow? How do we fill employer demand? Are questions that states and institutions are grappling with. I'm sure you all are thinking about those things. And students are also making decisions about their investments. There was a Strata survey through the pandemic that outlined that many students are really thinking about this educational pathway, their entrance into higher education, as a result to a good job. How will they end up in that job with self-sufficiency wages to help support their families? And so considering all of these things is really crucial as we move forward. And what we think at VOE, and one of the reasons this office was created, as I'll talk to you about, is that labor market data can really be important as a tool for this decision making, not the only marker, not the only lever to be used, but a really important lever to move forward. But of course, access to labor market data and use of labor market data at community colleges is challenging. As I mentioned, I've worked at community colleges all over the country, and at Rutgers, one of the things that I did was help colleges to use data. There are challenges in terms of staffing. Colleges have IR teams that have to do lots of other reporting, and sometimes they're not able to do extra reporting or future focused reporting because there is so much other stuff on their plate, which is just as essential, but different. And also, sometimes the data just isn't available, the right kinds of data to do this work. It's expensive. Sometimes folks, colleges purchase this data from groups like MZ or Burning Glass, but that can be very pricey. The unemployment insurance data may or may not be available to colleges. So that there are challenges in both access to data and use of data. There are traditional ways that many colleges throughout the country do this, track labor market data, and that's through the CTE tracking, Perkins tracking, and often that's done through surveys, and it's sort of, you know, it's a little bit piecemeal here and there. Some students answer, some students do, colleges do their utmost to get students to enter those surveys, but it isn't always the most full information that we could get as a picture. So around the country, there's this conversation about how can we get more and better labor market information to colleges so that faculty, staff, students, administrators can use that information as a tool to help them make good decisions. We think that labor market information and labor market data can be used in a variety of ways for all different groups. And a couple of those ideas are here: for developing new programs, for refining existing programs that you have, for improving and thinking about the quality of programs, for responding quickly to new opportunities like the infrastructure bill coming down from the federal government or other things emerging, for helping students to make decisions, use in career counseling, and even in academic counseling as students make choices about, you know, their initial math pathways as they enter college, or other choices about their program entry and their program of study. Conducting research and outreach to potential students. Dr. Constant talked about those ads that you've got. I can't wait to see one of them when I'm in the area. But this kind of information might help you all to tailor that outreach to potential students. And so we think that's really useful. And helping students to use their existing skills and their education. So beginning to think about how do we consider the career pathway, how do we honor learning that students already have through credit for prior learning or other mechanisms. Information on labor market outcomes, skills, education, et cetera, can be helpful in thinking about how do we stack these programs, how do we build on what folks already have, and also thinking about learning outcomes for programs, adding new learning outcomes to programs, adding new learning outcomes to degrees, taking some things away, just depending on how shifts and changes in the labor market, and especially the local labor market, are happening. So those are some of kind of our general ideas and what outlines what happens. So as you all heard from Dr. Sledge, I'm the executive director of the new office in Virginia, the Virginia Office of Education Economics. This office was really emerged out of these discussions about the need for labor market data, the need for translation of information, and the need for sort of an area to link policymakers, employers, higher education, students, and get data out to them, translate that, create partnerships. And so this was all detailed in a Chev report in 2020. The cover of that report is right here, and if anyone is interested in that, I'd be happy to send it along. This report really talked about the need in Virginia, how Virginia could use a separate office to do this. And from that point, Senator Hashmi created this office through legislation, and the office, BOE, was placed at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership. And so Todd and I are new. We just arrived here in Virginia. As I said, I arrived in September. Todd just arrived a little bit before me in August. And now we have the task of operationalizing this idea for the state and helping to bring information, data, both qualitative and quantitative data, to the state of Virginia to better think about education and employment connections and outcomes. And so I ask you all to please reach out to us, to talk to us, to think of us as a partner as you move forward with your work. Please send us an email. My email will be at the end, as will Todd's. If things come up, if there are needs that you've got, it's good for us to know what's happening in Virginia and what Virginia needs in order for us to be responsive and really a good partner, which is our goal. So just to give you a little background on me, and I'm also going to ask Todd to give a little background on him. As Dr. Sled said, I was at Rutgers for years, and while at Rutgers, community colleges were really the heart and soul of my research and my work. I've worked with many states, most recently with the state of Colorado, working on some evaluation and learning around their developmental education redesigns in math. But I've also worked a lot in career and technical education. I worked on 9 TACT programs throughout the country and served on the national evaluation for the TACT program. So really embedded in that. And I'm also appointed to the Congressional Board for Perkins. So have a lot of connections with CTE, have a lot of connections with the academic side of community colleges as well. And I've been on many community college campuses and talked to many community college students. And they are really at the heart and soul of my work and my mission. And we hope to make them a really big part of OE. Todd, can you talk a little bit about your?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here this morning. So as was what I kind of mentioned, my background, I'm pretty much a community college administrator. Prior to joining BOE, I did have about 5-year stint in industry before I went into higher ed in California for about 5 years, worked for a private university. But predominantly about the last 15 years, I've been in community colleges, predominantly focused on corporate education, career and technical education, grants development in those spaces. The reason my interest in involvement in BOE probably stems more from the fact over the last about 10 years when I was at Monroe Community College, which is a SUNY school in upstate New York, was a really heavy emphasis on labor market uses of labor market data to inform how the college would respond to a variety of credit and non-credit needs for training for workers in the industry. So just a lot of that work ended up with a supply demand framework that we developed that we published ongoing to the community, where we tracked about 128 occupations that were relevant, not just to the college, but to a much greater array of collaborative partners. So career and technical ed high schools, our other community colleges, sister community colleges, as well as different training entities in the workforce system. So we use that a lot to focus on how we would redesign our curriculum. We were quite a bit of highlights. We were highlighted in the Aspen Institute's Workforce Playbook, as well as several other publications for doing that type of work and then measuring the outcomes of students. So one of the things that we also would do is measure the UI records or look at our students in the UI record post completion. And so that was sort of an innovation that we were able to set up systematically, and that allowed us to get a lot of feedback on where students were going, how they were performing. So I'm just excited to be here. As was mentioned, I'm a community college graduate, so I've been a student. I did a 2+2, and I've worked at community colleges for a fair amount of time. So I have just tremendous appreciation for the work you do. And you're a great institution, you have a great catalog. So I'm happy to be here today, and I'm going to turn it over to Heather.
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is really an exciting collaboration here. So we're really early in our work, and Todd's going to share with you in a little bit some of the ideas that we have for VOE and how we're moving forward. But I encourage you, once again, please give us feedback on what you all need. What does the college need to move forward, to help make decisions, to respond to the different challenges that are in front of you? But we're working now to develop the operational infrastructure. Currently, it's Todd and I. We will have a few other employees joining quickly in the spring, and we're moving forward with a variety of tasks. One thing we're working to do is really reach out to community colleges, workforce boards, and universities, all of our constituents around the state, to understand what do you all need? How do we help you to move forward? I believe that data is only good if it is used for practice and policy, and so we want to make sure that we're producing data that is useful to you, that you need, and also that is consumable. And so we're thinking about all of those ideas as we move forward. We're trying to connect with partners and stakeholders around a variety of different things. So if you at the college have something going on where labor market information will be useful, if you're writing a grant, working on a new program, thinking about a new certificate, or thinking about adding learning outcomes to any one of your programs, if we can be helpful, please feel free to call us up, talk to us. We're here for that purpose. And we're really just beginning our research work. As I said, we've only been here a couple of months, but we hope by fall to have some really actionable products to share with you all. And we're excited to move forward with a website that will make data available to you all more frequently and put it at your fingertips for thinking through things in your everyday work. So we really consider ourselves to be a convener and a partner. We can help you work on pilots, policy, practice innovations. We can provide data for decision making. We're going to be doing qualitative and quantitative research around a variety of topics, and specifically in early days focused on industry areas. One of our first activities is the supply-demand framework, which Todd will talk to you about. We're working on this in 3 areas at the moment, but we'll be expanding those industry areas and would love to hear from you what's most important. Currently, we're working on infrastructure, IT, and healthcare. Those are some of the things we've heard from folks, and also we know that those are important due to the different issues happening in the country, the infrastructure bill obviously coming down. IT is very important in Virginia, and obviously healthcare with the pandemic is just crucial, thinking about those shortages and how we make sure to keep our communities healthy. We're also thinking about how to look at career and educational pathways. As we think about career and educational pathways, Todd and I are both thinking about kind of the aspirational charts that we've all seen in terms of what a career and educational pathway looks like, but also the actual pathways that students take. And so we'll begin to think about how we can process this, how we can look at it, and maybe how we can think about these educational career pathways in some different ways for the state of Virginia. We'll also be looking at credentials, including non-degree credentials. I've done a great deal of work on non-degree credentials. And so thinking about their value, quality, the understanding that employers have is really important to you all as you make decisions and moving forward with those. Also thinking about the linkages and the pathways of those non-degree credentials into credit programs is really important. In addition, we'll be thinking about those typical academic credentials that community colleges offer, which have great value in the labor market. And I think it's important for us to begin to do some work to understand that value. And so we're thinking about specific things like skills and competencies, how employers list those competencies, what skills and competencies are offered in programs. And one of our first initiatives, if we get some funding for it in a couple of months, might be a skills tacking effort where we are looking for partner colleges to begin to think about the skills offered in their programming. We'll also be looking at wages, and that's something that I know your college is already doing, that TCC is doing quite a bit for some of your programs, but it's possible that we may be able to expand and help you with that a little bit more. We'll be thinking about all of our work in terms of different regions and areas of the state. So understanding that your community is a local community and it has its own culture is important. And so we will be thinking about our work in those terms. And I'm going to hand it over to Todd now for the next portion.
Thank you, Heather. As just to pick up where Heather kind of left that, we're really are looking at supply demand. That's one of our first tasks that we were given, is to begin to develop a framework that can be applied to not the entire economy, but to specific sectors of interest from partners, which are economic development community, community colleges, right, institutions of learning. But we do want to go, we feel one of the things that we do need to do is when we look at and think about issues of workforce supply and demand is to understand that our supply needs to be broadened in terms of how we think of it. Certainly the focus has been predominantly when supply demand, where it's been applied, is typically looking at college graduates or graduates from different types of programs through formal educators. And that's certainly a big part of what we want to look at. But we do also want to start looking at aligned pipelines. So where we have potentially CTE-based high schools or early college high school programming and things that are clearly aligned to businesses and constituents in the market. They're expecting, right, those folks to become workers, being able to begin to take that into account, as well as we've already mentioned apprenticeship. And I know that apprenticeship is a pretty big piece of TCC's offerings. So that's something that we want to have more models of looking at that, including things like pre-apprenticeship or youth apprenticeship, so that we can begin to understand. We may have a dearth of workers at this point in time we're measuring, but can we look to the future by looking at those graduates that are coming through aligned programming and have a sense of how that might contribute in the future to a better workforce reality for those employers seeking those workers. Military exits, obviously Virginia, a lot of military. This is an important piece that we want to begin to develop models or work with partners who have models that we can incorporate that in terms of looking at transferable skill sets as folks move into the civilian workforce. And then certainly last but not least, dislocated workers, disenfranchised workers, underemployed, individuals who have been displaced. We think of things like Industry 4.0 and automation. There's a lot of work around where those displacements are likely to continue to happen. The pandemic, of course, has created all types of dynamics where we've seen voluntary displacements. How do we understand the skill sets of those populations, and how can we align them through programming and various other interventions to have those folks have the opportunity to go into areas where we really need workers and that pay is much better, self-sufficiency standards are much higher. So that's kind of this aspiration. I stress the aspiration piece to this because this is no small thing, but that's sort of the scope of what we want to do in terms of to create what we might frame a more 21st century model, practitioner-based model of how we can use this information for the benefit of schools and our other constituents. Can we do next slide, please? So we have a set of research questions because we are, a research-based method or priority. We start our work right with what are the research questions that we want to try to be answering. So for the supply demand framework, this is a set of questions that have really influenced us. It's a lot of questions that have come from a lot of the work that I've been involved in. But it's first and foremost, right, understanding what are the occupations, how are they aligned to the programs. And that can be college programming, but it can be any type of program right in the community that are training individuals or upskilling individuals. Where are those folks intended to go? Pretty simple stuff. I can tell from looking at your website, obviously you guys have probably done a lot of this work, but the idea is to start with that place and then begin to understanding the longitudinal perspective. Longitudinal perspective for us is a big part of our work, especially in the supply demand, so that we can begin to understand not just where we're trying to program based on demand, where there's need, but understand the quality of that demand. Why is there demand? Are we looking at high turnover rate? Are we looking at a lot of voluntary separations, which is happening right now in our economy? If you're staying with the news, we see a lot of this. Why is that happening? Is there low pay? Is self-sufficiency not there? Or is the profile of student or the worker, a particular audience that has other challenges that aren't being met. So this is where we want to have in our model a way to try to look at some of that and have a deeper sense of what's under the hood, rather than simply there's a need and we should respond. So where that looks like is year-over-year growth. We already mentioned self-sufficiency, the payment of benefits. We talk about the needs of workers, right? Benefits are a component of that. And if we might see in prayer work that I've been involved, you might see areas that pay less, but have strong benefits and a better work environment. And they have far better retention and promotion capabilities than programs or opportunities that pay more upfront, but really have almost a dead-end scenario. So those are things that we want to look at. And another thing that we want to look at too, and some from work that I've been involved in, I think has tremendous opportunity, and perhaps you've done some of this through your IR department, is really start to understand how non-completers function in the economy. Because from the work we've done, we found that particularly in CTE sequences, when folks are leaving early and going into, we can see them in the UI record, they're going into the same industries that the completers are going into. We're finding that when folks are getting, let's say, over 40 or 50% of the technical sequence, they are employable at wages close to, if not at, in some cases, the wage of the completion. So in the short term, there's a really strong win. So if we can understand that by looking at what's actually happening, that can help us understand maybe we need to modularize curriculum using the labor market data to actually tell us that, based on looking at dozens, if not hundreds of students that have happened in the past that have done this. So this is some things that we're thinking about. Can I have next slide, please? And the other place is a little more broader, though, in terms of community college practice. I would say this type of information can be used for, as Heather's already mentioned, the competencies and the skills. One of the things that Aspen's doing right now in moving forward with the workforce playbook principles is convening colleges across the country where they're looking at how the labor market information can actually infuse into the guided pathway model. And so these are things where if we can develop these more richer analyses, perhaps that can help. In Virginia, the schools that are following that model, is there ways that we can support that? Are there ways that this type of data can be used for career counseling, right? So there's a much more, a stronger sense of what's happening to students that have gone before the counseled student. Where have they gone? And we'll show some examples of that here in a minute. And then ultimately, like work-based learning, which I know is a big focus in Virginia and rightly should be, these types of analyses we think can help better understand the linkages to work earlier than just graduation and the value of that. And we know there's a lot of literature, I know in New York with the P-Tech programs and such, that are based heavily on the knowledge of knowing that early association to work and preparing people for the work environment is so powerful for them being successful. And then I know an area that's really of interest to both Heather and myself was the non-credit to credit, and how does that come into play? If we have a lot of infrastructure as an example, where we would anticipate a lot of the programming in that doesn't exist is likely to be fast track training, likely to be non-credit. If we're designing that, then how do we make sure that we're articulating that, or what are the next step paths, the actual career pathway, not the notional one, but the one that actually would function in the market? How does that work? So those are some things that we want to look at. Next slide, please. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but just to give you a sense, these are the fields I've kind of alluded to them and what I've said so far, but we really want to measure, and Heather mentioned this, it's not just occupation, demand for occupations and job roles. We also, because of technology innovations that are available to us now, we can also look at the demand for the occupations and the skills and skill clusters that are in demand, that in on themselves will actually drive a wage premium independent of the credential in some cases. So this is something we think is really, in a model, if we're building it, we need to be able to be, or would like to be able to incorporate that to the extent we can. Obviously, with all these fields, it depends on your being able to access good quality data, which is in itself going to be a lot of our work in VOE, is to try to set those up and get access to them in a way that we can present them. But there's also a strong component here, I believe, of diversity and equity, which I know is a tremendous part of the new strategic plan for VCCS. But in some work that we've both been involved in, and I'm thinking specifically of a healthcare study that I was involved in before I left MCC, this was an area that we started getting really deeply into, looking at the strong disparities within careers, where in the same occupational path, you have cutoff points where folks of people largely of color are not able to move up. And yet that's where the better pay, that's where the less turnover, that's where the stability and less vulnerability is. So I think that there's probably a lot of work that we can do around this, and to bring some real data both monetary and as well as quantifying this. And so that's our desire. And we want to emphasize that because I know it's so important to us as educators today. So these are some of the things that we want to look at. And so we'll be leveraging a variety of data sources, which we'll talk about here in just a second. If we can go to the next slide, please. And so that's kind of where we want to look at. So we will be looking at traditional labor market data because that is that's how the government systems run. There's a lot of yield you can get from those systems. There's a lot of great technologies out there. And so we want to leverage that. But we, of course, want to also look at some of the real-time data. That's essentially job posting analytics data. And that's been out, as we know, for several years now. But there's still quite a bit of value that can be derived from that, particularly if it's coupled with traditional data. But an area that we really want to look at, and perhaps this is an area for partnership as we move forward, is in looking at the social profiles of our graduates and individuals who are working in the fields that we're targeting toward. And so I have some examples of some of that from previous work I've done that I'll share with you that I think has real power for faculty in understanding where students might be going and what they're relying on in terms of skills. And as a mixed methods focused entity, we're looking at focus groups and surveys. And then, as we already said, the longitudinal perspective. So this is a big piece of that. So we, both Heather and I, backgrounds in using UI records. So matching student records to UI, and certainly a lot of conversations we're having with Chev on this, how we can build on the work they've done. But in developing, new data sets that can start to show more of what is bundled around the student's experience when they get into the workplace and other things that they're involved in. And ultimately, alumni outcomes, right? Because that's what this ultimately comes down to, is how are we able to understand the longitudinal trajectory that our students were putting them on, and where are they working and where are they going, and what are some of the steps they're doing in between. If they're moving on a transfer program, they're obviously going to an institution, they graduate. Where are they? What trajectory are we placing them on the top 5, let's say, for any given program? And these are things that we want to be able to model out. Next slide, please. So here's just some examples, and we just wanted to share some of this. This is from work I was doing when I was in MCC. It's some work that this is public information. So this is all, shareable. This was actually shared at a guided pathway conference that SUNY had hosted for the state back in 2020. But if we look at computer science, which is a very strong transfer program, very strong outcomes, we were able to look at a sample of 50 alumni. We were able to see how many were employed in the field, how many are residing still in the region. But if we go to the next slide, what we can start to see is these kind of Sankey flow diagrams. You've probably all seen this. A lot of this is very popular now to look at different types of data flows, essentially. So in this case, if we started to look at where those students have gone, and that's from them disclosing on things like LinkedIn and other places where they're on job boards, right, where they're actually engaging the labor market, basically presenting themselves as labor, right, to the market. And so as we read those, we can actually look at, on the Sankey diagrams, we can see that in computer science, we have a very strong outcome. Those individuals are going into fields that are expected, right? They're going to areas that are intended from the program. When you look at many programs, that isn't always the case. In some cases, it's far broader. It's not that it's negative at any means, but it's broader. So what can that tell us? Well, we use that with my faculty in a previous role was really to understand, are the skill sets and such that are being relied on, are those being taught in the program, right? Are we preparing the students for what they're facing practically in the field? And it's another point of feedback, right? It's not the definitive one, but it's certainly another sample that can be used to get us better information about our students. If we can go to the next slide, please. And then the next slide. So these are some of the things we can learn. These are the skill sets, and the size of the bubble is the proportion, the frequency that we see it in the sample. So what we can see here is not surprising, a tremendous amount of technical skill driving this success, right? Or driving these students in the labor market. But in other areas, we see a lot of common skills that we've seen, and won't spend much time on this because this is actually probably a whole study in itself, but we look at a lot of soft skills coming up repeatedly, and we see common cores of that. So that could tell us, in our curriculum, are there ways for us to focus on that common core and ensure that that's happening across more programs because they are showing up so strongly. But if we can go to the next slide, that just gives a tease of some of the things that we want to do. And why? Because we ultimately, as Heather's mentioned, the career pathway framework is something that we really want to focus on. And so we need to define what career pathways are. In this case, we're using a Harvard description that came from the 2011 report. I personally like this description because it shows the total need of students, the way that we're not just talking about simply a student going linearly, but they're coming in and out of the labor market. They have other supports that are needed, right? They have childcare issues. There's food insecurity. There's a variety of things that we know are very much a part of our students' need. And so how do we begin to take that into account if we're looking at supply and demand issues? We need to understand how those are playing or coming to play. So this is a very strong applied economics perspective. Okay, next slide, please. If we could go to, we're having
yeah, there's a little bit of a delay.
Okay, not a problem. So basically, in short, as we look at that, this is just an example of what we see that working. This is actually just a graphic that we're using from a National Governors Association report from 2013. But this is basically, I like this diagram because I think it's a little more accurate to how students are leaving. Could have a high school diploma, could have a GED or a task, right? And they're going in and out, and they're lifelong learning, basically, right? So in terms of if we're creating a model like we're anticipating, if we could try to go to the next slide, what we're really looking at then is trying to understand the needs in any given region in the Commonwealth. What are the industry sectors? What are the needs? Where are those industry sectors that are trying to be grown, right? The economic development community. And then what is the available training and the incumbent workforce? What are their skill sets to support that need? And so one of the ways that we need to be able to do that in a more 21st century way, right, is to create a framework for measuring that in areas that we're interested in, not the entire economy. And so that's where the model that we've just described, the anticipation is to be able to understand that and to be able to understand how we do that. So that's kind of the aspiring goals of VOE and supply demand. This isn't something that we're going to do overnight. It's going to be done with a tremendous amount of work with partners and their insight and other experts that in order to try to ultimately have success in creating a framework like this. So if we can just go to the next slide and we'll wrap up the comments here.
Yeah, I've clicked it, so hopefully it'll move over.
No problem. Let's start delay.
Well, it looks like we're a little stuck.
Okay. Well, so as we wrap that up, and we can kick the next slide one more time, we could, Heather, just since it's a delay, that'll get us going. There we go. So the last slide that we just wanted to end on, as we're looking at how we partner, how can we engage with community colleges and our other partners? It's really, in terms of community college specifically, we would like to know and understand as we develop these models, how can we support the great work you're doing? You're involved as we can do a survey of your website. You have a lot of these things going on. And if there's ways that we can bring more broader data models, access to data that you may not have access to, or maybe there's ways we can bring the cost of that data down to you, that's something that we're very interested in. Obviously, designing models that lead to measurable pathways for equity is a big piece of our theme as well. So we want to synergize around the new Opportunity 2027 plan. We are also formally involved in some of that, in some of the work groups. So that's not something that we're at all divorced from. And I think in the end, we want to support both industry and the citizens of the Commonwealth. So I think with that, we probably can wrap it up with time. That leaves us, I think, about 12 minutes for questions. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Heather.
Yeah, we've got a couple of questions that have come up in the chat. So thank you so much for folks who are sending those. And please, if you've got any others, put them in now so that we can be sure to try to answer them all. So the first question we have is, how will Virginia's community colleges be promoted as economic development magnets? And I think that, VOE was placed in VEDP, which is obviously the economic development agency at the state level here in Virginia. There are lots of ways that economic development happens for a variety of reasons. And one of those reasons, I think, is connection to economic development. And as we think about our work, and Todd may want to add to this, I think that one of the things that we can do is qualitatively and quantitatively begin to present the role that community colleges are playing in local economies in terms of filling jobs for the labor force, working with employers, and also as being tools for training and education as companies are thinking about coming into Virginia. And so for those companies that are existing here, thinking about expanding or training their existing labor force, and for those companies that are thinking about Virginia, thinking about community colleges as a tool. And I think what VOE will do here is really provide some data, provide information on the kinds of programs you have, the skills that are being taught. One of the ways that I think about this with our skills work in particular is thinking about a company coming in and being able to say to that company, okay, what are the skills you need? What are you looking for in folks? And then being able to link back to programs in the local areas where that company is looking to say, well, hey, you may not have thought of this program in particular, but these are the 12 skills that you think are most prominent. And maybe, there needs to be an addition here or there. But certainly that's going to be important for thinking about the workforce. The other piece of this puzzle, right, is that hopefully we'll be providing a detailed picture of what the workforce looks like, what that supply and demand looks like in different areas, so that colleges can begin to plan and think about where are the dearth of folks and what do they need to think about in terms of future focusing. And you guys are already doing much of that work, I know yourselves, but hopefully we can supplement that. And what we really want to know from you is what would be the most useful way to do that. Todd, anything to add to that?
No, I think that's right. And I think the only other piece I might add is something that we have discussed is looking at how we can measure the economic value, actually using real economic models about what lifetime earnings are for students coming out of different types of programs, and looking at having somebody stay in a low skill position and the vulnerabilities they have versus becoming, let's say, a machinist or becoming a skilled tradesman or becoming a healthcare worker, whatever you fill in there. There's models that we can partner with that will actually tell you what the differential is on that and the difference in lifetime earnings, and the return on their investment, right? And those are like program-based economic impact studies. So there may be ways that in some of these sectors that we highlighted where we could do that in partnership in regions, using the actual region's economy. And those, I think, can be really powerful. We've used those in the past where we've really been able to show the power of the community college and the programs that they offer to students. And so that's something that we're I think hopeful in time we can find the resources to be able to do some of that analysis. That would be fantastic, and I think it would go far to show the power that you guys actually, as in community colleges, provide.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly, Todd. That's great, and we're just getting started. So as we move forward, we're hoping to build on these things, and we'll be looking for resources to do much of this work. But as you pinpoint what's important, that'll be really helpful to us. Another question was, I was wondering how DEI, especially in the areas of race and ethnicity, is factored into your work. And I think in Todd's part of the presentation, we talked a little bit about how we're thinking about DEI, but really this is a huge component of all of our work and will be a focus area of each one of the analyses that we do on graduates and outcomes. In terms of industry areas, Todd gave the example of healthcare as one in particular that we'll be thinking about. And I think that the next question is about both qualitative and quantitative work. For the DEI work that we're going to do, I think that the qualitative piece of this will be really important. I just finished a study in Colorado, a DEI study in Colorado on math entrance and the choice of a STEM or a STAT math pathway. And it was one story in the quantitative data and a completely different story in the qualitative data in terms of the experience of students as they enter the college, and specifically the experience of students of color as they enter the college. What information they had presented to them on campus, the experience of their own family members in college or math pathways, their experience with math in high school. So all of these things were really important factors in decision making that students took, and I would have never gotten to that or understood that without looking at the qualitative data. And so I think that this is going to be a really important focus of all of our work. I encourage you all to both to keep us accountable and also to share with us where there's need in terms of looking at specific areas, especially industry areas, as we move forward. If in your communities you're seeing gaps or challenges, please let us know, or also in your colleges in programs, because I think that the local eye to diversity and equity questions is really quite important. So that's one answer to this. I think Todd talked a little bit more about it. Todd, anything to add?
No, I think it's obviously it's a huge piece, and it's something that also we're looking at, needing workers where we don't have enough. It's very important for us to understand where representation is not happening, and we using different types of benchmarks and obviously qualitative and quantitative approaches. So yeah, definitely it's going to be a part of it. And we've already included some of this. I might add, like in the infrastructure work we're doing, we are diving into, we haven't been able to do qualitative yet, but we are looking at, demographic data and at the different levels of potentially a pathway that could be there, and understanding how those breakpoints are, and whether we're seeing that representation, not just at the lower level, right? The low skill positions, we should see that reflected up through the progression, which in many cases we're probably not going to see. So we want to measure that. And then we begin to obviously go beyond that for further exploration in terms of what's happening. So yeah, it's a really important part of what we want to do.
The next question is, will your office conduct interviews with alumni, current students, et cetera, to gather more qualitative data to understand the depths of what is happening in the workforce, especially in the skilled trades? And I think the answer to this is yes. Qualitative data collection is a lot of work, right? And there's two of us at the moment. So I think one of the ways that we will be able to move forward with this is by partnerships with colleges, maybe participating in grant projects, and other activities like this, to be able to collect qualitative data and really provide a specialized focus on collecting qualitative information in an area, in an industry, for programs, et cetera. This is something that I have a lot of experience with from my work at Rutgers. I've done this for years and years, and I'm very passionate about the importance of adding a qualitative look at quantitative data. So where we can, we certainly will be doing this, but it does take a certain amount of body power to go out into the field and do this work. So as we grow, we'll be able to do more of this, I think, as we move forward. Right now, as a team of two, it's a little harder. Todd, anything to add to that?
No.
And then there's a sort of a conversation here about the Office of Institutional Effectiveness that has a close working relationship with IR and IE staff to include student outcomes data and race, gender, ethnicity, age, and other demographic areas. Using UI data, the college looks at graduate employment. College transfer data is looked at through National Student Clearinghouse data. So it sounds like this comment is talking about all of the great work that the college is doing with data and DEI. And I think that that's really great. And I really hope that we can have some further conversations about that. There was also a suggestion that we attend a presentation later this afternoon. So if we're welcome to do that, I would happily do that. And then there was one final conversation, or one final question that would we share our presentation, and we will happily do that. So thank you so much, Dr. Sledge, for having us today, and Dr. Constant for having us. It's been a great pleasure, and we really look forward to being partners with TCC as we move forward, and look forward to getting to know you as we move through our work, both to learn what your needs are, how to help you, and also to be great colleagues together in the state. I'm so excited.
Thank you again for joining us, Heather and Todd. I know that you mentioned that you just joined VOE, but it sounds like you hit the ground sprinting rather than running. So thank you both for being here with us today, and for detailing the role of VOE and providing a very robust overview of the ways in which your methodological approaches, and certainly the data, the resultant data, can benefit the college and ultimately our students in significant ways, which is our ultimate goal, as you both mentioned. So thank you again, and we look forward to convening and partnering with VOE as we identify needs and opportunities within workforce development. So thank you again. We will have a brief 5-minute break. after which we will return to hear from our TCC vice presidents. And again, we cannot thank our presenters enough. We certainly, again, look forward to working with you. And after our brief break, we'll hear from our vice presidents as they give us the state of our college with respect to their areas. Thank you all so much.
Hello, everyone, and Happy New Year to you all. I'm happy to provide updates in the area of finance and facilities, starting with, next slide, please. Starting with the Visual Arts Center. Many of you all are aware and know that the college closed down the Portsmouth Visual Arts Center and moved the visual arts programs to the Norfolk campus. I'm very happy to say that the construction has already begun on our very newly purchased former Farm Fresh building in the Harbor Heights building. The target date remains December 2022 or January 2023. Construction has begun and we are very excited about this project as it moves forward. Next slide, please. In addition to our ongoing HERF and CARES funded work that has been ongoing, we also, as many of you know, have purchased COVID-friendly seating and material for the college. I'm happy to say that over $4 million in furniture and outdoor seating has been ordered. And during this semester is when you will start to see that furniture appear on the campuses throughout. Additionally, the student services area of the Chesapeake campus in the past building is being redesigned to enable better social distancing. And this will enable students to have a more user-friendly setting, not have to wander around the building quite so much, and be able to see the resources that they need available and ready for them to be able to access. Temporarily, parts of the student affairs departments have moved over to the student center while this work is ongoing. Next slide, please. The Child Care Center work is ongoing as well at the Norfolk and Portsmouth campuses. Physical preparation, such as the playground equipment, is being evaluated. The technology is being evaluated. All of the space is being evaluated. Child equipment is being purchased, and the staffing is underway. We're very excited about this ongoing implementation, and we are still anticipating a soft opening date in spring or summer of this year. The state budget process, believe it or not, has already kicked off for this year. As you all know, we have an outgoing governor, Governor Northam, who has brought forth his budget, and that is the budget that will be used as a starting point. From there, the new governor, as well as the General Assembly, will make amendments or propose amendments to that budget. And hopefully, we will have a new budget for the next 2 years around mid-March of this year. Next slide, please. Some of the highlights that are included in the governor's version of the budget, again, include $38 million to increase capacity for the G3 program. This is a great thing for VCCS as a whole, because as you all know, G3 is specific to VCCS schools, doesn't include 4 years. But these funds, the proposal is to expand our existing programs and our offerings with the G3 funding. Additionally, another $30 million for VCCS schools is being proposed. $5 million to enhance our cybersecurity. As you all may be aware, if you're paying attention to the news, and particularly over the holidays, there are a lot of attempts across the country, across the world, in cyber attacks, and we want to make sure that we are able to continue to defend the college and the college resources in the appropriate manner. An additional $19 million is proposed in this new budget for the Maintenance Reserve Fund, and this is funding that will continue to help the colleges maintain our existing buildings. Often these projects include things like new roofs for buildings, new HVAC systems for buildings, and this kind of funding is much needed, as you might imagine. There were 7 projects included in the governor's proposed budget for capital accounting, and I'm very excited to say that the renovation and retrofitting of the Walker Building in Norfolk was one of those 7 projects. We're very hopeful and continue to be supportive that this will be one of the projects that makes it through. The other 6 projects are for other VCCS institutions. So obviously, as I said, there'll be amendments to the budget, and we hope that this is something that will stay in the finalized budget that we receive in March. And then finally, proposed in the governor's budget was a 5% increase in June of this year and a 5% increase in June of next year, 2023, for all full-time and adjunct employees of the VCCS. As I said before, I say all this with the caveat that we don't know what the final budget, will be after the General Assembly and the new governor makes their amendments and after the reconciliation process. But we're obviously hopeful that these are some of the items that will go forward and be of benefit to the VCCS. And with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague, Kurt Eason.
Thank you, Heather. We had a fall enrollment was mixed this fall. While we were down in full-time equivalent students, down 4.2%, our student head count was actually on the plus side, where while most of our funding is based on FTE, we do have some funding tied to student head count through performance funding, and I'd rather be on the positive side with more students than not. When we look at the key metrics, one of the reasons why there's such a wide gap between FTE and student head count is that on average, students carried fewer credits. And the number of credits students carry play into the calculation for full-time equivalency. And so while we were getting students in on average, they were enrolling in fewer credits. This was common across most of the VCCS colleges. In first-time in college students, which is such an important metric for moving forward and rebuilding our base enrollment, we were up 4.1%. Fall semesters, when we have far more first-time in college students, and it is extremely important that we increase this number to ensure that future rollover, most of our enrollments are returning students, so these students will become returning students, that we continue to build that base back up. Next slide. In student headcount, year to year change, this was the first time in 10 years that we saw a year to year increase in the number of students overall. It has been accelerating downward, as you can see. This semester, it finally switched positive, not by much, but that is a huge switch. On the FTE side, although we were down, it was our best semester since fall 2013. And it hopefully this will start to reverse that acceleration of decline as you see there. Next slide. Within the VCCS, in FTE on the left-hand side, we finished in the upper half of the VCCS colleges in that sea of red there. We 4.2% down, was above the system-wide down 6.1 decline. And so that has benefits for future budget distributions if we can continue to stay above the system-wide average. Thomas Nelson across the river in our metropolitan area was at the bottom, down 9%. Northern Virginia down there at down 8.2%. And as far as our unduplicated head count, the number of students, although we just squeaked in over the positive side, we were one of the few colleges that did. Again, you see a sea of red there in declining head count enrollment. Okay, next slide. So far this spring, this is as of Monday, which is a very clean comparison since we're on exactly the same schedules with enrollment cancellation and so forth. We were up almost 1% in student head count and down just barely 0.4% in FTE. So spring right now is looking good. And then this is regular enrollment, does not include high school students because the variability in that right now is huge. we look at those separately until later in the semester. Key metrics, first time in college students up 8.9%. Again, though, spring doesn't have as many first time in college students as fall, but we need first time in college students, and this is a welcome change at the moment. Average credits, some spring to spring is down a little bit, and that will impact the difference between FTE and headcount, but it's not quite as much as it was in the fall. So we're working on getting students to carry their credits. Next slide. And so where we are within the VCCS with regular enrollment, you'll see we're just on the downside of those in the positive FTE range, but well above the college, the system wide change. And in the number of students, we are in the positive range. Again, you see a sea of red in both of those metrics of enrollment, with the biggest school, Northern, continuing a slide that has started for them this past summer. Okay, changing subjects, next slide. I need to mention that we were last reaffirmed for our accreditation in 2017. That was our 10-year reaffirmation. Maintaining our accreditation is extremely important. We cannot collect federal Title IV aid or state aid without being accredited from a national accreditor. It is now time to submit our 5th-year report. It's due this September, as the president mentioned in her opening remarks. The 5th-year report isn't as comprehensive as the 10-year, but it is a collection of the same standards from the 10-year. There's 22 standards and 5 core requirements. The core requirements, if you don't satisfy the principles of accreditation on those core requirements, it's an automatic sanction. So this does carry a lot of weight. I don't look at this lightly, since it's the 5th year, not the 10-year. But it covers areas across the college. As my colleague, Dr. Bovee, says, there's something for everybody in there, as you can see. Also due with the 5th-year report is our QEP impact report, PACE. As many of you know, we've been working on that for the past 5 years. It is now time to let SAC-COC know how it has been going and what we will be moving forward with from this point on. And with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Woodhouse. Thank you.
Thank you so much, VP Asen. It is exciting to be able to come before everyone today and provide some quick updates from academic affairs. First, I'd like to begin. We have a few new deans, and some of these items may be a bit redundant, as Dr. Constant did share some of them. But I would like to recognize Dean Jennifer Ferguson, who is the new Pathway Dean for Health Professions, and she's located at the Virginia Beach campus, and Dr. Siobhan Harris, who is the new Discipline Dean for Natural Sciences, also located at the Virginia Beach campus. Next slide. We also have some just outstanding accomplishments, and I really feel that we should mention Dr. Tom Gary again, because he is the first faculty member from Tidewater Community College, really since 2010, to be selected as the Chev Virginia Outstanding Faculty Award. Dr. Gary is a full-time English faculty member here at Tidewater Community College. He's been with us since 2012, and the Chev Virginia Outstanding Faculty Award is given every year to recognize excellence in teaching, research and service within our Commonwealth. We are excited that one of TCC's own faculty members is the recipient this year. For those of you who know Dr. Tom Gary, please give him some warm accolades. This is a very, very competitive process, and we are so excited that he is the recipient this year. Again, congratulations, Dr. Gary. We also have our 2021 TCC Professor of the Year, who just did a phenomenal job this year at graduation, carrying the mace. Professor Kimberly Orton-Jones is the Professor of Funeral Service and has been at Tidewater Community College since 2006. She's very innovative. If you've ever observed any of her teaching practices, a lot of the great things that she does in the funeral service program is really well recognized throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia. So again, we extend huge kudos to Professor Kimberly Orton-Jones. We are about to begin, starting on Monday, our new compressed sessions. We've been talking about this for a long time. You've heard me speak about this, but in beginning next week, we are going into our full force compressed sessions of 15 weeks, 7 weeks, 5 weeks, and 3 weeks. I'm going to share a quick 2-minute video about this.
I'm Joe Fairchild, Dean of Public and Professional Services. I'm joined by Dr. Kia Hardy, Dean of Advising and Virginia Beach Campus Team. We're excited to tell you about TCC's new 15, 10, 7, 5, and 3-week sessions. We made this change to give students more options and more flexibility. With TCC's shortened sessions, you can incorporate a college education into your busy life. Life happens. Now, if a life event disrupts a student from completing their semester, fewer classes will be impacted and thus fewer credits will be lost. Plus, these students need not wait long for the arrival of a new session for replacement courses.
That's right, Joe. So let me explain how it works. Students will be able to earn the same amount of credits for our shortened sessions as they would for the 15-week session. In the shortened or compressed session, students can take fewer classes, focusing on 2 classes during each session versus 4 or 5. This format will allow our students to take a break between sessions, but still complete a full semester. The compressed sessions also allow students to maintain full-time status while focusing on a couple of classes at a time, instead of the traditional 4 or more classes at a time. Additionally, these sessions give our students more options. For example, a student could take a prerequisite course and successor course in the same semester, back to back. More options, more possibilities.
That sounds great, Kia. Research shows that students perform better academically in compressed sessions. Classroom lessons are more focused and there is less gapping between conceptual instruction. Students are more successful when they can focus their attention on fewer subjects at one time. By the 9th week of a 16-week course, students start to drop classes, get bored or overwhelmed, or just stop coming to class. Since classes meet more often each week, students spend more time with their professors in the shortened time frame.
And I can share a few examples of how this could work for a student. 2 classes in the early 5-week session, take a 1-week break, and finish the semester with 3 classes in the late 10-week session for a total of 15 credits. Or start with the early 10-week session, take a 1-week break, and finish the semester with the late 5-week session. Or take classes during the early 7-week session, take a 1-week break, and finish strong with the late 7-week session. There really are a lot of options, giving our students more flexibility for academic and personal planning.
Those are all excellent examples, but I do want to stress that even though the sessions are shorter, the class time remains the same. So for a 15-week session, students can expect to commit a total of 8 hours per week in each class. For the 10-week session, students can expect to commit a total of 12 hours per week for each class. For the 7-week session, students can expect to commit a total of 17 hours per week for each class.
And the shorter sessions have even more of a time commitment. For the 5-week session, students can expect to commit a total of 24 hours per week for each class. And then for the 3-week session, students can expect to commit a total of 40 hours per week for each class. Our advisors are here to assist students with these new schedule options. Our goal is student success. We really are excited about this change, aren't we, Joe?
We sure are, Kia. Our faculty are excited to support TCC students through their educational journeys.
Thank you so much. Again, we are very excited about our compressed sessions. I would like to thank the marketing office under the leadership of Naima Ford for working with Dean Fairchild and Dr. Hardy to produce this video. Thank you again. Moving on, I would like to recognize some great work that we're doing in the grants office. Right now, Dr. Michael Summers has been leading the grants office as we're searching for a new AVP. And working with him is Mr. Dimitri Gaston and Claudia Herzog. And they work very closely to work very hard to ensure that we are bringing quality grants here to Tidewater Community College. As you know, the college was awarded a Title III grant for $2 million from the U.S. Department of Education, and this is a 5-year grant, which we will focus on faculty advising, reinventing our academic support services, and increase low-income enrollments in the cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth. The college was also awarded $490,000 from the Virginia Department of Education to continue to provide child care services and training in the regions where we focus on the Virginia Quality Rating and Improvement System. The college was also awarded $111,000 from the U.S. Department of Transportation to continue to provide our academic truck driving training for our veterans. And last, the college this year is in the second year of its Open Door Grant, which has been run by Kay Williams for many years. And we did receive funding from the U.S. Department of Education to provide services at the Norfolk campus and the Portsmouth campus to help our low-income students succeed in college. We're very excited. And this is just a snapshot of some of the grants that we are receiving here at Tidewater Community College. I'm excited to present a bit of update on COVID and what we're doing. When faculty return back to campuses, you will be able to obtain N95 masks. They will be available in your academic dean's office, and you'll be able to pick that up upon your return. We have a new self-reporting form, and really I want to thank Kurt Asen, Ken Ballard, Stephen Cartwright. We're really excited. This is just a snapshot of the form, and you will receive this form and this information on Friday. But all of the information that really Dr. Campbell, Beth Lundy, and myself need will go into this document. You'll be able to drop your class rosters and information right into this document, and then it will automatically route to myself, it will route for cleaning, and it will route to Dr. Campbell and Beth Lundy for all the appropriate personnel that need to receive it based on how you answer what you are reporting. So just expect to receive this form on Friday. Again, we are excited about it. It is very user-friendly, and I think this will help streamline and expedite how we're doing our COVID-19 reporting. We will continue with the dashboard that is updated every week, and so you can also continue to review the dashboard for additional information. Next slide. I would like to conclude with a quick highlights and some great things that we're doing in academics. We continue with our My Thoughts, My Voice, My Art. TCC over the fall produced 12 live stream events, and they were attended and viewed over by 1,000 people within the community. So great work by the Arts and Humanities Pathway. Emergency Medical Services partnered with Chesapeake Public Schools this year to begin our first EMS dual enrollment program at the Chesapeake campus. This has been a long time coming under the great work of Jason Armstrong and Jennifer Ferguson. Great job for bringing this to actual fruition. Medical Lab Tech partnered with Hampton University and continues to work with them to provide laboratory testing to support community-based vaccination and their COVID testing mobile unit. Our LEAP program is about to gear up for the upcoming summer, but this past year we had over 278 students enrolled. We also have some new academic programs that are going to be starting. Our new Theater Arts specialization, our CSC in Emergency Medical Service and Emergency Medical Training, and our Driver School Instructor Training. This past December, we had a beautiful nursing pinning at the Portsmouth campus where over 40 students graduated, resulting this year in a total of 87 graduates with our nursing RN program. We had a wonderful meeting yesterday. We are working very hard to meet the needs in our partnership with Virginia Beach Public Schools to implement our veterinary assistant program. So stay tuned for more to come on that. And more importantly, and I'll end with this, the TCC was named to Newsweek America's Top Online Colleges. And this is an exciting recognition for all of the great work that continues to be done by our faculty and our staff here at Tidewater Community College. Thank you so much for allowing me to provide these updates. And it's my honor to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Karen Campbell.
Thank you, Dr. Woodhouse. Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. I'm happy to provide some brief updates related to student affairs. We continue to provide wraparound services for our students, and we will continue to provide those services this semester as well. In the fall, you can see that a lot of good work was done. We were able to provide over 700 hotspots, over 1,600 laptops. We had over 140 of our students receive emergency funds of over $180,000. We were able to assist our students with over 1,500. We were able to assist over 1,500 students with textbooks and then also Cox Internet services in the homes. We were able to assist over 460 families. So we're very excited that we will be able to continue to offer these services to our students. We are making some changes, however, and that's so that they can make these services more easily accessible for our students. Next slide, please. So previously, in order for students to receive these services, they had to go to each of these links and make a request. Now, with the help of marketing, I'm very excited to share what is new on the website. Next slide, please. Students can simply go to the website. It is under our service and support webpage. And if you know of any students who need assistance, please send them to the website. They can simply select scholarship, textbook, hotspot, whatever it is they're requesting. There's a form for them to fill out, and then someone will be in contact with them. So we're very excited about this change to make it easier for our students and to be able to continue to provide these services for them. Next slide. Although we are providing services remotely, I want to make sure that everyone knows that our hours of operation remain the same. And so that includes extended hours through January 14th. So students can certainly reach out to us according to our hours of operation, what you see here. And we're also still going to hold our special enrollment day. It will be virtual, but it will be this Saturday. So student affairs staff, they are continuing to enroll students right now. This is a very busy week for them, and they will be available on Saturday from 9 to 12 to assist students as well. I want to make sure everyone is aware of our open house dates. We also call them Enroll in a Day. So the Enroll in a Day allows students to be able to go to any of the 4 campuses to enroll in actually a day. They are able to meet with student services staff to get the assistance that they need. We had one event in December. We will have another event on February the 12th. And then our full-blown open house with everyone being involved will occur on Saturday, June 25th from 10 to 2. So we're excited about that to continue to be able to assist our students. Something else that is new, and we're very excited about, the VCCS has been engaged in this work as well, is that previously there was a policy that prevented us from being able to provide students mental health services. That policy has been changed. And so the State Board of Community Colleges approved revisions to the VCCS policy that now allows VCCS colleges to provide mental health services to students by contracting with a third-party provider. And so the VCCS was able to issue an emergency waiver so that we are able to engage with Timely MD for 1 year. The Shared Services Center will conduct a formal RFP process. And so the current provider may change, but for this year, we are working with Timely MD. Next slide, please. And so what that means for our students is that they will have immediate access to mental health professionals. We will be offering Talk Now, which is a 24-hour, 7-day immediate access to mental health professionals. We will also offer them scheduled counseling. So they will have 45-minute appointments with licensed professional counselors. They will be able to have at least 6 appointments at no cost to them. So this is why we're very excited about offering these services to our students. They will also be able to have health coaching as well. And so next slide, please. The timeline for implementation is as follows. We're working with the VCCS this week and next week to make sure that we will be able to launch this for our students. So Talk Now is already available. We will launch it all at once to our students, meaning announcing it to them, giving them instructions on where they can make appointments with counselors if they are in need of mental health services. So again, we're very excited about this work. We look forward to being able to share the announcement with the college and with the students. Next slide. We are also excited that we have been able to offer our students quick videos. So the advising office under the leadership of Dr. Hardy created short videos for students because what we found was there was a gap in their understanding of how to enroll in a class, how to access textbooks. And so we are sending them to these short videos if they are in need. And again, these videos can be found on the website. So if you know of any students who need assistance with any of these areas, please send them to these short videos. Next slide, please. We're also excited to launch our new student orientation. And so we should be launching that this month. Our students will be able to go through several modules as a part of their onboarding process and take a quiz to make sure that we know that they are engaged and that they're learning all about the college before they actually start taking classes. And so we look forward to being able to share this orientation with the college as well. Next slide. I'm also excited to announce World of Works. So World of Works is an interactive career exploration event for all 8th grade students. And it is designed to create awareness about career options. We have partnered with Chesapeake Schools Chamber of Commerce and the City of Chesapeake, and they would like the Chesapeake campus to be the location for the World of Works for Chesapeake. So we're very excited about this. You can certainly view any of the videos listed here. You can Google them if you want to get more information about what it looks like and how it operates. We will be hosting this event October 19th and 20th at the Chesapeake Student Center. We anticipate approximately 3,000 8th graders from Chesapeake. And our next steps is that we're going to form a TCC committee to talk about how do we prepare for this event. So we're looking forward to being able to have over 3,000 8th graders here at TCC. Next slide, please. VP Hardiman did mention that the renovations were occurring at this past building. Just to give you a little bit more detailed information, the move started on December 27th. You can now find admissions and enrollment and advising in the Student Center. So they're in the old First Year Success Office in the Child Mining space, if you're familiar with that space. Educational accessibility will be on the 2nd floor of the Student Center. The CMVE will be on the 3rd floor, and the Campus Dean's office will remain in the same location for right now in the past building. This project will take approximately 8 months to complete, so it's important that you are aware of the changes of the offices. Next slide. I do have just a couple of updates as it relates to leadership in the student affairs area. If you have not met our new director of the CMVE, his name is Stephen Borden. He joined us November 29th. He is excited to get started and doing a great job. He is located on the Virginia Beach campus. I'm sure he will reach out to you, or you can certainly reach out to him. Dr. Thomas Chapman is the interim Dean of Student Support Services and the Norfolk Campus Dean. And I think it's also very important to recognize Heidi Decker because she is our principal designated school official for International Student Services. And so we're very excited that she has joined the TCC staff as well. And then finally, just to let you know that we are in the process of filling the following position. The search is underway right now. And so we hope to have all of these positions filled within the next few months. And that is all that I have. I will now turn it over to VP Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. And Happy New Year's to everyone, and good morning. We have a lot of things going on in Workforce Solutions. 2021 was a great year, and 2022 is starting off fast and furious. I first want to say special thank you to the Workforce Solutions staff. They've worked so hard, and the updates that you'll hear, they had a lot to do with all the updates, and I'll get right into my updates. So the Skilled Trades Academy, we have completed renovations for the Skilled Trades Academy, and those renovations were completed over the summer. The facilities and renovations include 20 state-of-the-art welding booths, new coatings and pipe fitting modules. Our equipment that we purchased was purchased through the Go Virginia grant that we received last year. So we are very thankful that we received that grant. Those grant funds allowed us to really upgrade our equipment, our new welding booths, and our new coating modules. Also, with this renovations, we have new classroom space. This past November, we had an open house and we did tours. If you were unable to come by, I would encourage you to come by to our Portsmouth location to tour our new Skilled Trades Academy. This doubling our capacity, these renovations have allowed us to double our capacity. We have served so many students this year versus what we were able to serve last year. And this is critical for our region because of all the new jobs that are taking place in our region. So we're pretty excited about that. We are able to do more welding. We have 20 welding booths, which allows us to do morning, evenings, and weekend classes. The next point I want to talk about is our mobile welding units. We will launch in 2022 several new mobile welding units. These units include a mobile welding unit for welding as well as electrical. And we're scheduled to have our mobile welding booth delivered on Friday. So we're pretty excited about that. We have a partnership with the city of Norfolk in Lions Shipyard, where the mobile unit will be housed on Lions Shipyard. Students will train, and then they will go right to work at Lions Shipyard. So we're really excited about that. When you think about equity and access, a lot of times transportation is a barrier. So we hope to alleviate that barrier of transportation by taking our learning units to our students and meeting them where they are. So we're excited about that. As far as grants, this past year, Workforce Solutions, we were awarded over 470 grant dollars. And I'm just going to talk about a few of those. One of our most exciting grants was a grant through the Lumina Foundation. We were one of 6 colleges in the United States to be awarded a Lumina grant to really evaluate what works best for workforce. How do we scale these programs? What can we do better? A lot of storytelling, a lot of data collection with this grant. And so we're really excited. We will start the meetings this week in January. and this grant will last till the end of December. So we're excited about that. We also received $157,000 from the Virginia VCCS, and we are able to really train students who are incarcerated. And upon their completion of their sentence, they're being released and they're going to work. So we're excited about that. The next piece I want to talk about is our workforce roundtable events that we have scheduled for 2022. We are continuously trying to figure out a way to make sure that our community, internally and externally, really understands workforce. So we will host several face-to-face and virtual roundtable events to talk about the impact of workforce solutions on our region. We have a lot going on in workforce, and we have continued to grow our enrollment. Our fast forward numbers have increased by 60%. We have served over 413 VA ready students, which means that these 413 students were also awarded $1,000 upon completion of their credentials. And so far, we have served 134 G3 students, and we hope and we know that these numbers will continue to grow in 2022. And at this point, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Beth Lundy in Human Resources.
Good morning. I hope that everyone is rested and rejuvenated following our nice December break. And I just wanted to provide a few updates this morning. Your HR team has been working hard and continues to work on several projects that are really in addition to our day-to-day and routine HR work. And most of that involves HR software, their HR software related type of projects, and it includes transitions to a new onboarding system, our transition to Cardinal, and an upgrade of our HRMS system. And of course, what would an HR update be without talking about COVID and Executive Directive 18 and all of those fun things? So, so far as the onboarding software transition, the Shared Services Center is transitioning from Silk Road to Avature. We are in the last wave of colleges that is making this switch with the onboarding. Your HR staff has been training with the Shared Services Center for the last few months, and we go live this month and actually next week. And the software does add an offboarding solution as well. This, from the onboarding perspective, it primarily affects new employees coming in, as well as any employees who are transitioning from part-time to full-time employment. And of course, managers and supervisors are impacted by this change. And there will be training sessions that the Shared Services Center is providing for managers and supervisors next week. And I'll be sending information out directly to managers and supervisors a little later today with information about those sessions. And as you can see, the SSC's benefits of the system. So, so far as the transition to Cardinal and our HRMS upgrade, Cardinal is the system that is going to replace our current statewide HR and payroll systems. In HR, we have the Personnel Management Information System, and Finance uses SIPS, the Commonwealth's Integrated Personnel and Payroll System. Cardinal is a PeopleSoft product, just like HRMS. So HR and finance have been working together. There's a lot going on behind the scenes when we make transitions with these types of systems. And so HR and finance have been working together to ensure that we'll have a smooth transition. The scheduled go live for Cardinal is in April of this year. And coinciding with that, HRMS will be upgraded. We're on an older version of HRMS. We will bring that more current, which will benefit us greatly. We'll leverage the technology better. And that upgrade is scheduled to be completed in May. Next slide, please. All right, so just a few updates related to COVID, really primarily, and we'll talk a little bit about Executive Directive 18. The CDC, most of you are probably familiar with this. It's been on the news repeatedly, but the CDC has shortened the recommended time for isolation for the public. People with COVID-19 should isolate for 5 days, and if they're asymptomatic or their symptoms are resolving, so without fever for 24 hours, that's followed by 5 days of wearing a mask when around others to minimize the risk of infecting people they encounter. So that's their guidance. So they've updated the recommended quarantine period for anyone in the general public who is exposed. So for people who are unvaccinated or are more than 6 months out from their second dose and not yet boosted, the CDC now recommends quarantine for 5 days, followed by strict mask use for an additional 5 days. Individuals who have received their booster shot do not need to quarantine following an exposure, but should wear a mask for 10 days following that exposure. And for everybody exposed, the best practice would be to get tested after exposure. And if symptoms occur, individuals should immediately quarantine until a negative test confirms symptoms are not attributable to COVID. The college will continue to follow CDC guidance related to quarantine and isolation. And employees should continue to report their situation to HR and to their supervisor. And it's a good time, just in light of the increased number of cases. In light of the increased cases, just to remind folks regarding the use of public health emergency leave. So the Department of Human Resource Management provided amended guidance related to the use of public health emergency leave in October of 2021, and that remains unchanged at this point. It provides up to 80 hours of paid leave to eligible employees to attend to their own medical needs and or those of their immediate family members due to positive cases of COVID-19. Medical documentation is required to access the public health emergency leave. And up to 8 hours of FEL may be used to obtain a COVID-19 vaccine or booster and or recover from side effects resulting from obtaining the vaccine. And that was effective beginning in September going forward. And documentation of vaccination and booster injection will suffice for access to FEL for the use for that purpose. Once the allotment of the public health emergency leave is used, employees may use appropriate and available leave balances to cover. But I just want to note that the public health emergency leave for now is not used in cases of exposure. It's only in the cases of positive results related to COVID. And of course, just an update regarding testing unvaccinated employees who are working remotely. And we are in a virtual environment now this week and next. Unvaccinated employees are not required to test each week when they're working remotely. Only those unvaccinated employees who are required to work on site will have to undergo weekly testing while we're working virtually. HR was scheduled to distribute test kits for the month of January this week from the Virginia Beach, Portsmouth, and Chesapeake business offices. In light of our shift to remote work and the increased number of cases, we are not distributing the kits on the campuses. Distribution on the campuses will resume when we return to on-site work, and we will keep you posted about that. Unvaccinated employees who are working on site and need test kits should work with their supervisor and HR to obtain their kits. HR will distribute test kits from the district office. We'll be doing that tomorrow from 8:30 to 11:30 and other times by appointment. As I'm sure you've heard, test kits are in great demand right now and supply is limited. The kits we have on hand need to primarily be used for those who are unvaccinated and required to work on site. We want to ensure that we have an adequate supply to meet that requirement. As throughout the pandemic, things continue to change quickly. The situation is very fluid, and we're waiting to see what changes will occur when Governor-elect Glenn Youngkin takes office. How will that affect Executive Directive 18? we're not sure yet. We really won't know until he comes in. And of course, the Biden administration vaccine mandates, they face challenges in court. And, we're carefully monitoring to see how all of this plays out, how this affects. And we will keep everyone posted moving forward. In the meantime, if you have any questions about anything, please contact us in HR. We are primarily using our Ask HRMS at tcc.edu email. Please email us, reach out and we'll help you out. And that's the extent of the updates I had. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you, AVP Lundy, and thank you to all of our vice presidents. As you all can see, as Dr. Constant mentioned, we have a very effective and a phenomenal leadership team here at Tidewater Community College. So we are indeed quite fortunate. And now we'll have Dr. Woodhouse coming back on to share with us a few updates and changes to our schedule for today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sledge. This has been a wonderful convocation. I hope that you have enjoyed receiving the information that we have shared with you. What you will see now is our agenda for the remaining part of the day. We do, in your agenda that you actually received, the data discussion and DEI conversation will be moved to 1 o'clock. Kurt Asen hopes to have a very engaging conversation with many of you who we hope all of you will come back and will participate at 1 o'clock on this exciting data discussion and learning more about our diversity, equity, and initiatives that are going forth here. From that, we'll go into our additional sessions at 1:45. We have a session on high-flex engagement strategies across modalities. At 2:30, diversity and inclusion in biology. 3 o'clock, navigating regular and substantive interaction. 3:30, intellectual values and vices. 4 o'clock, race, grace, and a safe place. 4:30, diversity, equity, and inclusion and social justice. And last at 4:45, our prior learning assessment update. We do have a packed day and we have a lot of great information to share. I wish we could all be together and we could have lunch together today. However, COVID still remains a part of our life, and your safety and our safety is of our utmost concern. Again, thank you so much for joining us for the first part of our conversation, and we look forward to seeing you back at 1 o'clock. We will send out an update email with the link just in case anybody needs that information. But again, thank you so much for joining us.